Have you wondered, how do we get from random entries on Google Forms to a user-friendly dashboard? Thank you for joining us today at Sheets Magic. Today we're going to go over a few basic preparations that will make your life easier before we jump into the data analytics. Some of this may seem trivial and focus on aesthetics, but I guarantee it will make it easier to read your data and formulas in the future and make it easier for you to identify where the formulas go wrong. So the 3 commandments of Sheets design is this. Number 1, it needs to be easy for people to get to what they need. Number 2, it needs to be meaningful to the end user. And number 3, there may be people who aren't familiar with Excel or Sheets. How can you make sure they don't press something wrong, drag something, and corrupt all your hard work? For this session, I'm going to assume you know how to import data from a Google form. If you're not sure, there's a guide in the appendix on how to do this. I have a dataset prepped for you. You can just click on this link, or you can go to the Google Classroom and click on Data Analytics Sample, click on the link, and it should lead you to a landing page which asks you to make a copy. First, we're going to do text wrap. So how you can do this is you can click Ctrl A on your keyboard, or you can just click the square at the top left corner for your datasets and just go to text wrap and click wrap. And what this does is it just keeps all the text in the same cell. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some text alignment. What's really useful is to have all your text aligned to the top, because if you have a row that's really long, you might look at this and see, oh, there's no data on the top. But if people have to scroll down, or if sometimes the rows leach into the other part, you don't get to see what's exactly on that row. I'm just going to undo that. What we're going to do is just align your text to the top. So with that, all the things are aligned to the top, and this makes it easier to read because we read from top to bottom, not bottom to top. I do like my numbers aligned to the center, so I'm going to do that real quick. You don't really have to do this depending on how you like to see your data. You can align left or right, and because of that, the titles have sort of shifted. So I'm just going to make that line back to the left. So pretty simple things. If you want to select all in a column, just click the J or the alphabets on top, and if you want to select anything across the rows, you just click on the numbers. Next, we're going to do is adjust some column sizes. This is really cramped and there's a lot of text in it, but I would like to read it easier so that it's not a really long row. So I'm just going to drag this out. Now it fits a lot more comfortable within the columns. And this one's a bit long too, so I'm going to drag this out. Now it makes it easier. Everything's a lot more neater and I can see a lot more information as it goes. Again, this is all up to your preferences. You can adjust column size however it fits in your screen. Next, we're going to do is insert data filters. And this is a very powerful, but yet very simple function. All I need to do is select the whole row on top, click data, and just click create a filter. Really simple. What filters do is it allows you to quickly filter through your data whenever you need. So for example, if you look at column C, you can see it's workshop 2, and then data is workshop 3, and down here is workshop 1. What if I want to view workshop 1? I can just click on this and sort A to Z so that I can see workshop 1 on top and workshop 2 at the bottom, and then 3 will be at the bottom. What if I want to see 3, 2, and 1? For example, if I want to see scores, I want to see who gave me the highest score, so I'm just going to put Z to A so that it shows the highest scores, and it's going to sort accordingly. So this is in descending order, and you can go and adjust different things. If you only want to see data from a certain workshop, let's say I only want to see data from the South, I can just select. This will give me only South data, and it doesn't delete anything. And if I need it back, let's say I want to see South and East, very simply click on 2 of that. And how you can tell someone has filtered this is by seeing the funnel sign instead of the inverted triangle. Just to get rid of that, we're going to either click select all, or you can just select whichever boxes you need. And you can even filter by conditions if you want. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can filter by, but we're not going to touch on that in this session. Next we're going to freeze. When I scroll down, I've lost my titles, and it'll be very useful to know what actually I'm looking at when I'm running through the data sets. So I'm going to select this column, and I'm going to go view, freeze up to current row. So as I scroll down, my titles are always there. Sometimes when you have a lot of questions and you need to scroll to the right, it will also be useful to see who gave this feedback. So for email addresses, I want to view until then, freeze up to column B. So that way, when I scroll to the left or right, I can always see who gave what feedback. And again, this is depending on what you need. This is the way I normally would set it up. And the last but not least is we're just going to hide and delete unused stuff. I wouldn't look at timestamps. If you do need to see when people submitted their forms, that would be great. But if not, what I normally do is just hide this column. It's an auto-generated thing from Google Forms. I have a lot of blank columns to the right here. You can either click on N so that it selects all and then Control Shift to the right, which selects everything, or you can manually drag if you like and then just delete these columns because we won't be needing it. You can delete the ones at the bottom, but I would leave it just because as more data comes in from Google Forms, it will auto-populate. But then again, even if you delete it, Google will automatically generate the rows that is necessary. Here we have some random question on column M, and this happens when you change your Google Forms. We can remove this by deleting it. So that way we only have the information we need on this sheet. And you can see this data example. I also think it's a really long text, so I'm going to delete what I don't need. I'm just going to call this data. Why I like to keep tabs really short is so that when you have a lot of tabs, it's easy to scroll through instead of having really long titles and then we have to take forever to scroll to the right. Next thing we're going to do is prep the data. So we're going to name the ranges and then we're going to create a new tab. So I'm just going to show you real quick how we're going to name ranges. I'm going to select everything on column B. I'm going to put define name range. And you can see here, explore tips. Use name ranges in formula. They are easy to use, recall, and read. So instead of having to type this data exclamation mark B2 to B1000, you can just click the name range. You can name this email, people, participants. I would definitely keep it short just so that it's easy to recall in your formulas. The other benefit about having this is when you have long formulas, it's easy to pull out where exactly you went wrong and what it refers to. Otherwise, when you see B2 to B1000, you have to scroll around and figure out which column it's actually referring to. At least this way, when you see in the formula, it's just email and you know which column it's referring to. So done. Next, at C, please select the session. You can name this session. I'm going to name this workshop because the data says workshop. Workshop. So you see here, you only select C2. I want to select all the way to the bottom. You can put C1000 or 10,000 after the colon, but I'm just going to put C, which simply means all the way until infinity. So that way you see automatically generates all the way to the bottom. Next, we have region. You can type region, do the same thing. I would recommend this session to another fellow. This is essentially the Net Promoter Score, which is used in a lot of workshops. I'm going to call this NPS for short, and all the way to E. And then what's the reason for the score? This is very qualitative. I'm not going to put any formulas to generate certain things. You can scroll through this manually just in case you want to see it, but I don't think it's necessary for our purposes. Not everything needs to have name ranges. Next, content of the session. Because this is quantitative, I definitely want to analyze this. So I'm going to call this content because content of the session was relevant, or you can call this relevant, but content is shorter. And I'm going to add a next range. The facilitation techniques were effective for this session. And you can see I'm now referring to a different box. If I click, it doesn't really change. So you can just make sure to watch out for that. H, and this is facilitation techniques. So I'm just going to call this FACI for short. And last one is I'm confident applying from this session. I can add a range and call this apply all the way to the end of I. If you do one who's the session facilitator, you want to filter that you can do that, but for our session, we won't be covering over that. You can hover over these name ranges and you see it would sort of highlight which range it's actually referring to. And this is definitely very useful when you do data analytics and key in a whole bunch of formulas. So the last thing we're going to do is going to create a new tab and call it analytics, or you can call it analysis, however you want to name it. Good practice is not to mix input and outputs together. You don't want to mix where you eat, where you poop together. Same thing for data. The worst thing you can do is put numbers at the bottom. Some people like to do that, and I think it's a very inelegant way of keying in data, right? So you can put equals, sum, and select everything on top. But when new information comes in, this gets messed up. And also, when they open the sheet, they won't know that there's calculations on the bottom. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that. So just create a new tab, call this analytics. That way, all calculations are always done on a separate sheet. And we'll cover this in the next session. But for now, the last thing we're going to do is just create a new sheet, which we're going to call the start sheet. And this is definitely very useful. When you have a lot of tabs, you want people to easily know which tab is referring to what information. And also when they first open the sheet, what is this sheet actually all about, right? So you can insert description or purpose of this sheet here. And then I'm going to call tabs and then descriptors or what it means, right? So my first tab is data, and this is auto-generated from Google Forms. And then next I have analytics. And I'm just going to say this is our analysis of workshops. And I'm going to bold this, do the same things, adjust column lengths. I would delete anything that's not necessary. If I don't need so many rows, I'm going to delete it too. And then just going to create table of contents looking thing. You can change the background color for this, change it to light green. And these two columns, I don't need it to be that long, so I'm just going to shorten it. And a quick way to make it look clean without a lot of lines at the background is just click View, remove grid lines, and you have something that looks a bit more like Microsoft Word. And then we're going to link to sheets in the spreadsheet. I'm going to link this to data, and I'm going to link this to analytics. This is a quick way so that when people click on this, it brings you quickly to the data sheet. So now that I'm looking at this sheet, I actually don't need to see all these titles because all the titles have actually already been named. So what I like to do, but you don't have to do this, is just to make it short, just so that I can see more data points in the same sheet. So that's all for today's session, just quickly prepping your data, and then we're going to jump into the formulas in the next session. So thank you all for watching and hope you learned something.